Before I moved to Willow Grove, a quiet suburban enclave on the edge of a bustling Midwestern city, I pictured a serene life surrounded by neatly trimmed lawns, shaded streets lined with towering oaks, and a tight-knit community where neighbors wave from porches and swap stories over backyard barbecues. Most folks here were either young professionals climbing the corporate ladder or retirees savoring their golden years, tending to gardens or tinkering in garages. The homes weren't sprawling estates, but each came with a modest driveway and a detached garage out back, accessible via a narrow alley feature I'd come to cherish. The local homeowners association, or HOA, kept the neighborhood humming along, managing shared spaces like the community pool and ensuring the streets stayed pothole-free, all funded by our monthly dues. It sounded idyllic, and for the first few months it was. I settled into a routine quickly. Mornings began with a jog around the block, the crisp air filling my lungs as I nodded to familiar faces walking their dogs. Evenings were spent in my garage, wrench in hand, fine-tuning my vintage Triumph motorcycle under the glow of an overhead light. The garage was a perk I hadn't anticipated. Low VY-ing so much a separate structure with its own fenced yard, wired into a shared electrical circuit that powered the automatic door and lights. It was my sanctuary, a place where the hum of the engine drowned out the world. Life in Willow Grove felt like the peaceful escape I'd dreamed of until Eleanor Grayson noticed me. Eleanor, a wiry woman in her late 50s with a severe bob haircut and a wardrobe of crisp blazers and muted tones, was the HOA's treasurer and unofficial enforcer. Around the neighborhood, people called her the warden behind her back, a nickname she'd earned with her hawk-like vigilance and unrelenting standards. She carried herself with the air of someone who'd been given a badge and a gavel, even though the HOA board was a collective of 5. As treasurer, Eleanor controlled the purse strings, deciding how dues were spent or, more often, how they weren't. She had a reputation for pinching pennies in ways that baffled everyone, from shortening the pool's summer hours to insisting the landscaping crew skip every third week, Leah VYing the grass patchy in yellow. Budget constraints, she'd say, her voice clipped, though no one could figure out where the money went if not to basic upkeep. My first run-in with Eleanor was minor. I was swapping out my motorcycle's license plate in the driveway when she appeared, clipboard in hand, her lips pursed like she'd just bitten a lemon. "Make sure no oil drips on the concrete," she warned, peering over her glasses. "It's in the bylaws, stains lower property values." I nodded, biting back a retort, and she moved on. A week later, she caught me dragging my recycling bin in an hour after pickup. "Bins must be stored by noon," she snapped, as if I'd committed a felony. Annoying, yes, but I shrugged it off. I'd heard whispers from neighbors how she'd once find a guy for Leah VYing his Christmas lights up past January 15th, or how she'd slashed the community garden's water budget midsummer, wilting half the tomatoes. Eccentric, I thought. Harmless enough. That illusion shattered the night. I pulled into the alley after a grueling day at work, my car's headlights cutting through the dusk. I clicked the remote for my garage door, expecting the familiar rumble as it slid open. Nothing happened. I clicked again, still nothing. Frowning, I parked and fumbled with the manual key to the side door. Inside, the overhead light switch was useless. The garage was a black void. My first guess was a trip breaker, but the house power was fine. Then it hit me. The garages ran on a shared subpanel controlled by the HOA. If mine was out, it wasn't a simple fix. The next morning, I called the HOA's maintenance line, expecting a quick resolution. The staffer was polite but vague. "We'll look into it." Days passed with no update. Hauling the garage door up by hand was a chore. Its springs groaned like an old man. Getting out of bed and rummaging through my tools with a flashlight felt absurd. I cornered my neighbor, Tom, a burly guy with a pickup truck, in the alley. "Your garage power out too?" I asked. He scowled, kicking a pebble. "Yeah, going on a week." Called the HOA, he said. "It's a cost SA VYing measure. Can you believe that? We pay dues for this crap, and they just cut us off. So they might restore it selectively, whatever that means." His sarcasm was thick enough to cut. I was floored. A cost SA VYing measure? The garages barely sipped electricity to our motors, and a few lights couldn't compare to the pool pump or the street lights that blazed all night. It reeked of Eleanor's meddling. I fired off an email to the HOA board, keeping it CIVYL. Can you clarify why the garage powers out and when it'll be back? The reply came fast, signed by Eleanor herself. The HOA has temporarily disconnected power to certain detached garages to curb electricity costs. We're exploring cost-efficient alternatives. Thank you for your patience. No timeline, no apology, just a cold, corporate brush-off. My frustration simmered into something hotter. Word spread, and the next HOA meeting was packed. Usually, it was just a handful of retirees sipping coffee in the community center, but this time, 24 of us crammed in, the air thick with tension. The board sat up front. Henry, the soft-spoken president, a few quiet members who rarely spoke, and Eleanor, her blazer a pale lavender, her expression smug. After droning through pool schedules and holiday decor, Henry broached the garage issue, calling it a power realignment. Eleanor stood, her voice sharp. Electricity costs have spiked. The garages are an unnecessary drain. Many of you barely use them. Yet we pay for constant power. We've cut the least used row to save money. We're looking into options like motion sensor lights, but for now, the circuit stays off. Tom shot up. Least used doesn't mean unused. I need my light, daily charge tools, store gear. We're paying full dues for half the SARE VYC. Eleanor barely blinked. The SAVYNGS are substantial. If your row wants power back sooner, we could discuss a surcharge. Gasps rippled through the room. A surcharge? For something we'd already paid for? I raised my hand. The garages are part of our property's lights, doors, storage. Why not cut elsewhere? Or at least consult us? Her eyes narrowed. Your row's usage was excessive for its value. This is fiscal responsibility. We can't cater to every whim. No data, no proof, just a word. The meeting ended with no fix, just vague promises. We left fuming. Back in the alley, Tom and I hashed out ideas with a few others from our powerless row. Hiring an electrician to bypass the HOA's circuit sounded tempting, but it risked legal trouble. A petition might work, but Eleanor seemed immune to pressure. Meanwhile, I rigged an extension cord from my house to the garage, 40 feet of awkward, tripping hazard cable. It worked until Eleanor spotted it and cited me for violating a no cords in common areas rule. I was at my wit's end. Then, browsing online one night, I stumbled across small-scale solar kits. People use them for cabins or sheds. Why not a garage? If I could power my door and lights with panels on the roof, I'd be free of Eleanor's grip. The idea lit a fire in me. I dove into research. A few 200-watt panels, a battery, and an inverter could run my setup. Costly, but worth it for independence. The HOA bylaws required approval for exterior changes, but nothing banned solar outright. The garages faced the alley, not the street. Low-profile panels might slip under the radar. I drafted a proposal. 3 panels, flush-mounted, black-framed, powering only my garage, no HOA burden. I submitted it, nerves jangling, knowing Eleanor would fight it. At the next meeting, Henry read my plan aloud, sounding intrigued. Eleanor pounced. Solar on that rickety garage? It'll be an eyesore. Roof leaks, extra weight. We can't risk it. I countered, I'll hire a licensed contractor. The panels are light, discreet in VY Cybele from the street. The HOA pays nothing. She pivoted. Our bylaws demand uniformity. This sets a precedent. Another member, Clara, piped up. We allowed a satellite dish last year. Why not this? The board voted Eleanor nay, the rest I. Approved. I exhaled, but her glare promised trouble. I hired Greenvolt, a local solar outfit, and scheduled the install. 3 panels went up in a day, wired to a battery inside. I watched, half expecting Eleanor to storm in. She didn't just lurk down the alley, snapping photos. By dusk, the system hummed. The door glided open. The light glowed. I posted about it online, and neighbors cheered. Some asked for tips. Others joked Eleanor was seething. She was. Her email hit the next day. concerns about glare, safety compliance, pro-VY to engineering reports, permits, or face reevaluation. I forwarded it to the board, replying with my existing docs. Clara, shut her down. He's compliant. No more hoops. Eleanor tried a city inspector next, but my permits checked out. She was out of moves. The saga shifted the neighborhood. My solar setup drew curious VY sighters. Tom considered one too. Eleanor's garage blackout backfired. Residents demanded the circuit restored, and Henry finally overruled her. Power returned, but I stayed solar, savoring my autonomy. Then came her final gambit, a proposed bylaw to ban unauthorized installations, letting the board remove approved setups like mine. The special meeting was a circus 50 residents, a buzzing crowd. Eleanor pitched her rule, claiming my panels threatened aesthetics and safety. The room erupted. Tom roared, "You cut our power. He fixed it, now you punish him." Others chimed in, "Solar boosts value. What's next, stripping out my roses?" I spoke last. "You approve this. It's safe, legal, and costs you nothing. This rule kills innovation." The crowd roared approval. A straw poll crushed her plan. The 67 fan tram homeowner vote she needed was a pipe dream. She stormed out, defeated. Her clout crumbled after that. The board grew, transparent. Residents found their voice. My panel stood as a quiet VY, Toria middle finger to petty tyranny, powered by the sun. One day, Eleanor approached me in the alley, her tone grudging. "Your setup's got people talking. Maybe solar's not so bad." I grinned. "Could save the HOA money too." She nodded, a rare concession, and walked off. Willow Grove settled into a new normal, freer, brighter, and a little wiser. My garage glowed, a beacon of what one person could do when pushed too far. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.